how China's Silk Road created the first global market. Long before Wall Street, before the East India Company, before the idea of a global economy even existed, there was a road. Not a single path, but a web of trails, stretching thousands of miles across deserts, mountains, and seas. And at one end of it was China. For nearly 2 millennia, the Silk Road wasn't just a trade network. It was the financial engine of the ancient world, a system that connected empires, moved fortunes, and laid the foundation for global commerce as we know it. It began with silk, yes, but what it really traded was trust. The Silk Road was born during the Han Dynasty, around the 2nd century BCE. At that time, China was already an economic superpower, self-sufficient, innovative, and rich in resources. But it was silk that captured the world's imagination. Light, strong, shimmering like liquid, it was unlike anything the West had seen. To the Romans, silk was the fabric of gods. To the Chinese, it was statecraft. The Han emperors tightly controlled silk production, treating it as a form of currency. Silk was paid as salary to officials, gifted to allies, and traded for horses and metals. As Chinese caravans moved westward, they carried not just goods, but influence. Every bale of silk was a diplomatic statement. China trades from a position of power. What emerged was not a single road, but a complex network of trade arteries, linking Xi'an in China to Samarkand, Persepolis, Constantinople, and eventually, Rome. Goods traveled hand to hand, across thousands of intermediaries, each taking a cut, each spreading ideas, religions, technologies. By the 1st century CE, the Silk Road had created something new in human history, an interconnected economic ecosystem that spanned continents. In a world without banks, credit cards, or telegraphs, value and information began to move globally. It was, in essence, the first world market. To understand why the Silk Road worked, we must first understand silk itself. Silk was not merely a luxury. It was money in textile form. The Roman Empire spent fortunes importing it. Pliny the Elder, the Roman historian, complained that Rome was bleeding gold to the east so that ladies may shine in transparent garments. He wasn't exaggerating. By some estimates, tens of thousands of pounds of silver left the Roman Empire each year for Chinese silk. The balance of trade was brutally one-sided. China exported high-value goods, silk, porcelain, paper, while importing relatively little. Gold and silver flowed eastward, enriching Chinese treasuries and draining Western coffers. This pattern, a manufacturing East and a consuming West, would repeat across centuries, from the Roman Empire to the British Empire to the modern United States. In this sense, the Silk Road wasn't just a trade network, it was the prototype for every global imbalance that would follow. Trade on such vast scales required more than camels and courage. It required finance, mechanisms to handle risk, credit, and trust across thousands of miles. Merchants developed early forms of letters of credit, allowing goods to be traded without carrying large sums of cash. In the Islamic world, this evolved into the Suftaja and Hawala systems, ancient equivalents of wire transfers, where money could be sent across the world through trusted intermediaries. A merchant in Samarkand could pay another in Cairo without a single coin crossing the desert. The Silk Road was not only moving silk and spices, it was moving financial innovation. Even the Chinese government got involved. During the Tang and Song dynasties, China began issuing paper money, centuries before it appeared in Europe. By the 11th century, the Song dynasty Jiaozi notes were widely used, and their circulation along trade routes created an early form of monetary globalization. For the first time in history, paper promises could move value faster than ships. If there was a capital of this first global market, it was Chang'an, modern Xi'an. In the 8th century, under the Tang dynasty, it was the world's largest city. a cosmopolitan hub of 2 million people. Here, Persian traders dined beside Indian monks. Arab merchants shared tea with Chinese officials, and caravans arrived daily from as far as Baghdad. Gold, silver, silk, glass, ivory, and even slaves passed through its markets. But more than goods, Chang'an traded ideas. Buddhism entered China through the Silk Road. Later, papermaking and gunpowder would travel the other way. The city's vibrancy symbolized what historians now call the Afro-Eurasian world economy, a loosely connected system of regional markets that, by the 9th century, had become interdependent. Each region specialized: China in silk and porcelain, India in textiles and spices, Arabia in metals and horses, Europe in silver and glass. The Silk Road tied them all together, turning local economies into a global one. It was the world's first experiment in supply chain integration. The Silk Road shaped, and was shaped by, empires. The Mongols, for example, under Genghis Khan in the 13th century, unified nearly the entire length of the route under one political umbrella. The result? Trade exploded. The Pax Mongolica, as historians call it, turned Eurasia into a single economic zone. Caravans could now travel from Beijing to Venice under the same imperial protection. Marco Polo's journey was possible precisely because the Silk Road had become safe and standardized. But with openness came vulnerability. Alongside silk and gold came disease. The Black Death, carried by fleas along the same routes that once carried wealth. The plague wiped out up to a third of Europe's population in the 14th century, collapsing demand and fracturing the great trade networks. Globalization had created prosperity, but also shared risk. It was a lesson the modern world would learn again centuries later. By the 15th century, the Silk Road began to fade. Two forces drove its decline: conflict and competition. The Ming Dynasty, wary of foreign influence, closed China's borders and restricted trade. Meanwhile, European powers, Portugal, Spain, and later the Dutch and British, found a new route to Asia, by sea. The age of exploration didn't invent globalization, it rerouted it. Instead of caravans crossing deserts, ships now carried goods across oceans. The economic center of gravity shifted from Central Asia to the Atlantic. But even then, the Silk Road's DNA lived on. The same goods, silk, porcelain, spices, tea, still dominated global trade. The same pattern, the West consuming, the East producing, persisted. What changed was control. The overland Silk Road was a network of shared exchange. The maritime system that replaced it became one of imperial domination. The world went from trading partners to colonizers and colonies. Fast forward to today, and China is once again invoking the Silk Road, this time through its Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. Officially, it's a $1 trillion infrastructure project. But strategically, it's something deeper. An attempt to recreate the logic of the ancient Silk Road in a modern industrial world. Railways instead of caravans, fiber optics instead of parchment letters, ports instead of desert oases. The same principle applies. Control the routes of trade, and you control the flow of power. It's no coincidence that Beijing calls it the New Silk Road. It's a statement of continuity and ambition. For 2,000 years, the Silk Road has represented more than commerce. It's a story about how connectivity creates dominance. The first global market didn't just emerge because people wanted silk. It emerged because China built the infrastructure, physical, financial, and cultural, that made long-distance trade possible. In doing so, it gave birth to the first truly global economy. When we talk about globalization today, we often imagine it as a modern phenomenon, driven by capitalism, technology, and multinational corporations. But in truth, the world has been global for over 2 millennia. The Silk Road was the original internet, transmitting ideas as fast as merchants could travel. It was the original stock exchange. redistributing wealth across borders and cultures. And it was the original experiment in global interdependence, with all its promise and peril. When gold flowed west and silk flowed east, humanity learned something profound. No civilization is an island. Trade binds, transforms, and sometimes destroys. But it always connects. And every empire since, from Rome to Britain to America, has chased what China built first: a world united by exchange. Because behind every empire's dream lies the same enduring vision, that whoever controls the roads controls the world.